Okay, so we are going to finish these techniques. We'll have to get back to one of the ones on here a little bit later. But with the tissue paper, go ahead and let's paint, well, don't go yet. We're gonna paint one of them just using a solid color. And if you get a little paint outside of where the actual tissue paper is, that's okay. That'll kind of help you guys see the difference a little bit. And then for this next one, like we did with this technique, you can go ahead and add a gradient or something. Just have multiple colors on there. So I'm gonna just continue to do yellow, white, and then I'll kind of use that pink color that I already have to create a little bit of a gradient. So as you can see already, the colors are just making, or that tissue paper creates a nice little, just a texture. And I'm gonna show you guys something a little bit later when this is dry, what we can do to make that look even cooler. So if I put this up here, you can kind of see some of that texture. And like I showed you guys earlier, I'm gonna have you kind of look at this effect here, but this entire background of this painting was created with the tissue paper texture. Okay, so we'll get back to this tissue paper one here in a little bit. I'm just going to continue to use the same colors here so I don't have to rinse out my brush. But for the sand, you can do kind of a similar thing. It's just going to create a nice little texture too. For this one though, you do kind of have to add a lot of paint to get in there. So notice it's really hard to use your brush like a traditional, just nice smooth brush stroke. Instead, you kind of have to dot it in and dab it in areas. But this can, if you are creating something that has a little bit of texture, like a sandy beach or something like this, you can actually use that texture a little bit to add to the painting. So let me show you what it looks like with another color here. And once again, we'll come back to this one when it's a little bit more dry. And I'll show you another way that you can finish that one off. Do your best to get all those white spaces, okay? So we will come back to that one. Now, the Sgraffito is kind of a fun one because we're actually going to scratch into the surface here. So I'm gonna use kind of this loaded brush of this pink, yellow, white, like I said, just using up the colors. And I'm just going to paint over top of this blue. Now with this one, you do have to work quickly. You do not have time to let it dry. And so then what you can do is you can take the back of a pencil, the back of a paintbrush, you can take a popsicle stick, a pencil, and you can just simply, I'm going to use this pencil, scrape away the paint. And what that does, so it's kind of similar to that texture one we explored, this texture one, but it's going to reveal the color that is underneath. So this is really good if you have something that you want to have a little bit more detail in it, okay? So let me show you what it looks like if we use a little bit more of a variety of colors, like over this blue and green one. But you do want to make sure that your color on the top is a little bit different than the color below it. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult to see what your design is. So now in here I could be a little bit more purposeful of things. So like you can even, my popsicle stick is glued here, so it could be bigger marks coming in, smaller fine details, okay? Sometimes I really like the way that those bigger marks look because it really reveals the color underneath. So that is that Sgraffito technique. It's going to reveal the color that is underneath, okay? Like I said, we'll get back to these tissue paper and sand one in just a minute, but I want to go back and I want to talk with you guys about the wash and the glaze. So for this one, you will want a water cup because we're going to thin out those colors again. And once again, I'm just going to use these colors that I have on here, and I'm going to water it down. So what this does, here's an example. So this would be the example of the same green color I used for the background, and then I just layered it over top. So it just builds it up. And we're just doing this with water right now, but if I were to draw something or paint over top, that's still a little too thick. It's just going to kind of layer over top of it a little bit. I'm going to thin this out even more. And you can kind of see like this, there we go, that it's just going to kind of add to the color a little bit, and so it just changes it and layers your colors, which can get a pretty cool finished look. But once again, you got to make sure that these colors are thin enough, otherwise it's not going to work. It should almost be the consistency of a watercolor. So if I go onto this paper here, the white part, see how thin that is, okay? So that's just when you're going to layer different colors over top of each other to get a different effect.